Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our podcast today. We're going to be talking about innovation and creativity and reinvention, a lot of the Arlington story. And really excited to have three guests with me today, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So, Cindy, do you want to get started?
Yes, good morning. I'm happy to be here. My name is Cindy Salter, and my husband and I are longtime Arlington residents, and we are the owners of Salter Brothers Coffee Roasters, located on Division Street in downtown Arlington. And I used to practice law. I used to be a children's music director at First United Methodist. So I have footprints all over the city, and I love the city, and I'm so happy to be here today, Maggie. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, we're excited to have you and have you as a new business in downtown. Scott, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your business and how long you've been here?
Well, thank you very much, Maggie, for the opportunity to be here and with this great group this morning. I'm a UTA alum, off and on Arlington resident, been here for a few years back again now. We have a biomedical company, typically focuses on dental, or did up till COVID-19 era began. We're located just across the street from Fuzzy's Tacos.
And Michael, thanks for joining us this morning.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. I'm Michael Jacobson. I'm the president and CEO of the Greater Arlington Chamber of Commerce. We're an organization that represents about 1,200 businesses in the Greater Arlington area. We've been in Arlington. This is our 75th anniversary as an organization. And for me, I've been in Arlington a little over 4 years, but born and raised in the Mid-City, spent a lot of time growing up in Arlington.
Well, our earlier podcasts, we've talked about how we were a small town. We were an agricultural town. We had a military school that got developed here early on. And we stayed fairly small, and that was pretty much our footprint up until about after the war. But there were some amazing things that started happening here in the middle of the century. And every one of them has a story that ties back to being innovative. Michael, I'm going to ask you to start with some of the legendary stories about Arlington's development and help us understand how this sort of characteristic we have to always reinvent and find solutions seems to kind of happen around every bend.
Maggie's right. In the 1950s, and coming out of the war and looking at growing our city and changing it dramatically from being a small city in between Dallas and Fort Worth and turning it into a vibrant city and one of the largest cities in the country. And there's a couple of stories that I think do help. So let's talk a little bit about Vandegrist Folly. Tom realized the city was surviving on 11 wells to provide its water. Well, we were moving and turning ourselves into a manufacturing hub with the recruitment of General Motors. But we knew if General Motors was going to grow and if we were going to do something around Great Southwest Industrial Park, which I'll talk about even more a little bit later, that we needed to have water. Water was going to be critical. So a decision was made to create a lake. Mayor Vandegrist was integrally involved in almost every level of involvement. Because of the size, it was a 15 billion gallon capacity lake, which was huge. People said it would never fill. Well, when the lake was completed and they dammed it up in March of 1957, within about 15 days, the lake filled. So that year there was about 50 inches of rain, and a lot of that rain came in April. So it was called Miracle Lake for a period of time until about a year later, they actually changed the name of the lake to Lake Arlington. But it's just a great example of realizing that if we were going to grow as a manufacturing and grow as a major city, we weren't going to be able to do that on 11 wells.
That's a great story. And, going back even before the 50s, we were one of the first places to have an electric streetcar, the interurban. And interestingly, that wasn't publicly financed. It was a private venture. It operated for a long time. It moved people between here and you could get to downtown Dallas or downtown Fort Worth in 20 minutes on that streetcar. And that didn't happen very often in American cities. Most of the time, public transportation is publicly funded. So what about, though, when the city really started growing and exploding? You talked about the recruitment of General Motors. We were right in the middle of Dallas, where the freeway system was starting to be built, and you could start to see the emergence of the suburban phenomenon. What else happened, Michael, then that sort of drove the city to its exponential growth through the next couple of decades?
Arlington always realized the value of having tourism as a component of what we do. So when you look back in that point of time, there's two sort of forces that came together, and it still shapes Arlington today. So we were building a great Southwest industrial park. So this was during the 50s. So we have this industrial park that's on the map. It's still in Arlington today, but at the time it was one of the largest industrial parks being built. Well, there were demands that industrial park was creating. They needed revenue to be able to put the infrastructure in place to be able to develop that industrial park. Well, you have that going on. At the same time, you have Mayor Vandergrift, who went to college at USC. While he was at USC, he became fascinated with Anaheim. And he could see what Anaheim was doing from an entertainment standpoint to grow themselves. And so he was paying attention to that. When he became mayor, he was really interested in getting Disney to come to Arlington. So you have this industrial park that's starting to build. Part of their land is sort of in wetlands, not good property to develop. So the mayor got the idea that we ought to bring Disney to Arlington.
You're talking about Walt Disney, build a Disneyland here.
Build a Disneyland. It would have been the second Disneyland, right? And because this predates Disney World.
Gotcha.
And it would have been in Arlington. And Angus Wynn, who was the developer of the Great Southwest Industrial Park, was working with the mayor. Unfortunately, Walt Disney did not have the same vision. He didn't see it as an opportunity for his company. But it didn't make the idea go away. So they really saw this as a good opportunity to grow our industrial base by using entertainment as a way of driving tax revenue, which would allow them to do the infrastructure they needed to do to build the rest of the city. So they come up with an idea to do their own amusement park. And initially, as they developed it, the name of it was Texas Under Six Flags. That was going to be the name of this park. And the wife of Angus Wynn said, look, Texas ain't under nothing. I realize there's a double negative there, but that was the quote. So they had to come up with a new name. So they came up with Six Flags Over Texas. I think the original budget was about $7 million. I think it cost about $10 million. It opened up and on August 5th, 1961, there were probably about just under 9,000 people there. But by the next summer, they were getting 20,000 people a day to start to come to the park. And that really then, that level of tourism coming into Arlington helped us do some significant things and to build out that Great Southwest Industrial Park, because the tourism part of it is a means to an end. It's not an end of itself.
Yes.
Right? It's not just being a tourism location. It's getting all the revenue that tourism generates that allows us to do other things, like build out Great Southwest Industrial Park. So it's really, really creative, innovatively, and you see it still manifest itself today. It's very much in the DNA of Arlington.
I think you're so right. And isn't it interesting how being rejected by Disney, or the long fought battle to bring a baseball team here, rejection after rejection, and our leadership just didn't take no for an answer, and we just try to find the path to achieve the vision.
Yeah, failure is just another step in the learning cycle. So you just learn and you just keep adapting and keep going.
Yes, and I don't think we can talk about innovation and creativity without spending some time talking about the University of Texas at Arlington. A long time ago, when Arlington was still a small town, it was a military school in the very beginning. And over time, it evolved and became an agricultural school. And it stayed that way for a long time. Eventually, it was part of the Texas A&M system. So there's been a lot of change at that university, and it has continued to evolve and redefine itself. Scott, can you talk a little bit about your impressions of UTA and this sort of environment that we operate in here adjacent to the university? And what about that helps fuel creativity and innovation in our downtown?
UTA has definitely grown so much from what you were talking about, from military, agriculture, on into engineering, and now it is grown into such a huge nursing force in the state and the country. And as healthcare is really at the forefront right now, UTA is looked at with such respect for its healthcare program and all of the science and research that is now driving people even working on cures for COVID, opportunities for regeneration of body parts at the new SEER facility, which, a lot of Ivy Leaguers came down to look at our building. They have done so well over the last couple decades to really change themselves and change their image. UTA has had a gigantic online presence now for quite some years that a lot of people don't know about. It's viewed as such an engineering and nursing school, but it's not viewed as a school of innovation and entrepreneurship, which it actually is now.
I think you are so right. The university has come into its own and is just outperforming itself right and left, but it still tends to have this lingering reputation, which is really a misconception from a lot of people out there, that it's still a commuter school. And if they think that, first of all, they haven't been here lately. And second of all, they're not paying attention to the amazing things that are happening on that campus. Michael, can you talk a little bit about the efforts that the administration there has made over the last couple, I'd say, decades, working toward that Tier 1 university status and what that means for our community and for that university?
The University of Texas at Arlington has over 12,000 students that live on or around campus. If you look at the total number of undergrads that SMU and TCU have total, that's more kids living on and around campus at UTA than the total undergraduates at those universities. It's not quite, but it's close. It is true that UTA is a first generation university, meaning there are a lot of kids who come to UTA and they're the first in their family to attend a university, and I think that's something to be really proud of. But to be a university that's that sort of first generation university and you're a Tier 1 research university puts UTA in, I think, some pretty remarkable air. So from a Tier 1 research standpoint, UTA has 10 years has been doing a lot to increase their research capabilities, from bringing in top-flight professors with significant credentials. And there's a governor's program that the governor actually helps, and there's dollars from the state that helps bring in these sort of rock star professors. They've also been working really hard to build their research endowment, so bring in dollars for research. They're also working really hard and engaging with corporations to do research as well. So you see this big push, and one of the hurdles is to have $100 million in research, and UTA has reached that hurdle. And right about the time I started, they received the Carnegie Mellon designation as a Tier 1 research university. They now, I think, reached the state of Texas definition of a Tier 1 research university, so we should be really proud of that. I don't know how many people know that we have a genome mapping lab at UTA, and that puts UTA at the forefront. And matter of fact, they may be the only university that has a genome mapping lab that's not connected to a medical school. I think as you look to the future and how Arlington is going to be developed, when people 50 years from now are looking back and saying, what were those drivers that began to change the Arlington we know today? I think UTA is going to be at the heart of that. Saying it's a commuter school is not correct. To say that it's a university that's passionate about the community where it's located is true. So how do we take that and take all of the research and engineering and entrepreneurship things that Scott is so much in the middle of, and help use that to be the sort of definer of what the future will be?
Well, and this university neighborhood that we share with our downtown has infused this sort of vibe of innovation and creativity. And I see it. I see it in businesses that are popping up all over downtown, working quietly in warehouses or office space, and they're doing amazing, innovative things in robotics. Scott, I'm going to ask you to talk about how you benefit from the really smart, young, talented people that are coming out of that university. And after that, we're going to talk to Cindy about her experience as a recent startup in this same environment. So, Scott, can you reflect a little bit about the synergy we have? And no matter where in history we've been, that's probably always been there. But what's going on now, and how's it helping your entrepreneurial efforts?
The city itself, the university, and the Chamber of Commerce all are interwoven so much together. They all help each other out. It has helped us as an alum. I came back to UTA and just expressed what I wanted to do as an entrepreneur. They took me in under their wing. They said that opportunity exists for any alum. I was given the ability to use their first effort at an entrepreneurship lounge and co-working space on campus to whiteboard our company and be a part of their Epic Mavs entrepreneurship and innovation program until we got to a point where we could move off and then plug into the chamber and meet other people. We've just had a phenomenal community experience, and everybody has the ability to plug into that. We have a large amount of interns that come from UTA. We have a large amount of interns that come through the Chambers program with AISD and the practicum program. And our goal has always been, how do we keep them all here? You grow up in a university town and you're like, I can't wait to get away from home and I can't wait to get as far away from my parents as possible. Those same kids are the ones that we really want to keep here in Arlington, because a lot of them are such cutting edge kids that have great minds. They're innovating and they're creating. There are some in the different co-working spaces around Arlington now that are already building companies from the day they started at UTA. And they're able to plug in. The Chamber's been a big part of trying to help grow this new young entrepreneur alongside UTA in warehouses and houses and all different places all around downtown Arlington. There's people building robots. There are people doing some amazing things that I think, like Michael said, one day people will look back on this and they won't really believe that so much was going on in Arlington. So we had the opportunity to get started at UTA, and then we bounced around through different places, coming up through the co-working circuit that has really started to flourish here in Arlington. There's been different ones of different sizes with different themes: Center Space, Penn Station, Nubo Desk. There's lots of different co-working type spaces that exist, and some probably that are on the map that we don't even know about quite yet. But it certainly is a hub for community innovation, people working together. As we grew out of the need for just one small office in a co-working space, we needed a bigger building and bigger space. And the space here on Abrams Street opened up. It was a no-brainer. It was nice to know ahead of coming into the construction what we were up against for a couple of years while they made everything look beautiful. It got us plugged into downtown Arlington Management Corporation, meeting Tony, then meeting you, and being able to participate in that in some way. Watching all of this, it's one of the most fun parts right now, being with all of these businesses that are along such a major strip in Arlington. We're really proud of that, and now it's really fun, the walkability aspect of Arlington, to be able to park your vehicle in the morning and not get back into it until you leave. And we walk to lunch all the time. We visit and frequent all the local restaurants and support them. It's so great to see people out walking around. It's really neat to watch all of the restaurants kind of come alive again, and the community are coming back out after not being out for a while, seeing how beautiful Abrams Street is right now. We're very, very happy with the way it is and very happy to be here.
Well, and it's this sort of rich environment, this tapestry of change and, dynamic community engagement, and then physical changes that have been transforming downtown Arlington. This is this environment that is attracting entrepreneurship and new businesses. And we've had quite a bit of success in the last 2 years. We've a lot of new businesses that have come into Urban Union, the development along Front Street. And I have to say, before we launch into hearing her story, that there's a couple of things that are indicators of vitality in downtown districts. When you see people walking their dogs and walking strollers, and you start to have spilled ice cream cones on sidewalks, those are all indicators of success. Proliferation of outdoor patios is an indicator of success. Coffee shops are definitely an indicator of vitality. So we're very excited to have Salter Brothers join the mix. And can you tell us a little bit about why you chose this place? Because you've got a great product, you could have gone anywhere. Tell us what you've seen about this entrepreneurial environment that was part of the attraction.
Sure, I'd love to. Salter Brothers Coffee Roasters was founded a few years back, and we could have put it anywhere, but we decided why not just put it in our own backyard. We've lived in Arlington for 25 years. We've raised our kids here. Our oldest graduated Leadership Academy. It's been such a great city, and we thought, look at all the exciting things going on around us. Let's just set up shop here. And initially we were in the entertainment district, and at some point we realized as a coffee roaster that we needed to set up a coffee house so people could sit down and do something very basic and just have a cup of coffee in a sense of community. When we drove around, we saw, what is going on in this urban union district. This was an area that we used to just drive through really quickly to get to someplace else, and we rapidly saw that there was this reinvention of a classic and beautiful downtown area to something new. And we thought this might be a great place to set up shop. And I'm talking about the Urban Union area around Front Street. And we're located on the corner of Division Street and East Street in the former Lukanda building. It is a gorgeous mid-century modern building. And talk about reinvention and creativity. There is a group of investors a while back that decided let's pick up this area and make it something new and fresh with a nod to history so we can reinvent this part of downtown and enrich this part of Arlington. And so when we had the opportunity to sit down and look at this building, we knew that it was the right place to be. And not just because of the building, because we all know a community is really made up of the generosity and the creative spirits and the entrepreneurial spirit of people around. And we saw our neighbors around us that were setting up shop, and they were a place for people to gather and get excited again about this great downtown area. We're first-time entrepreneurs, and we thought it would be a good idea to surround ourselves with other more experienced entrepreneurs. And why? Because everyone helps each other out. We meet, we collaborate, we creatively come up with new ideas. We help each other, we support each other, and that's what we've seen down there.
So many of our businesses have figured out how to cross market and how to do partnerships. And so particularly during this COVID response time, I've seen so many businesses figure out how to partner and leverage, to keep their product out there or, stay relevant during these times.
Anyway, there's a spirit of creativity and collaboration in downtown. And it is unstoppable, and it's growing every day. And even in the middle of, right now, at the time of our taping, there's a pandemic. There are still people out there helping each other. There are still people creating and doing great new things. And I can't help but think that it's because Arlington has a long, rich history in doing exactly this, being entrepreneurs and having a can-do spirit. When we started our company, we decided how are we going to get plugged into the city? How are we going to succeed? And we immediately joined the Greater Arlington Chamber of Commerce. So it's a nod to Michael and our organization. And all of us on this call are members of that. And it's really important to get connected, not just say you're going to, but actually get connected, because it is through that together we succeed attitude that Arlington has gone from where it was to where it is now and where it's going in the future. But I also need to tell you there's another reason we chose the downtown area. And it goes back and it ties in with something that Michael was talking about with Six Flags and when that opened up and what an exciting theme park. I had the opportunity about 10 years ago when I was the children's music director at First United Methodist of Arlington, right downtown, to work with a man named Gene Patrick. And he was quite an active and creative and vibrant city leader. And after I started working with him, I just thought he was this really cool musician, helped us out with so many things. And I learned that he brought the Broadway style musical shows to Six Flags over Texas when they first opened. He did the arrangements, he performed in a lot of them musically. He then went on to travel around the world and do that, and then come back to his beloved town of Arlington. Luckily, he did, and do so many other great things around the city. And I thought, wow, I'm working with a man who helped create all of that. How humbling is that? But he was a man who always wanted to share, and he's one of many people around the city's history of this. I could remember as if it was yesterday, sitting in the rehearsal hall on the bench of this gorgeous grand piano, and Gene and I were talking about the music for the children's summer musical, and he was helping with the arranging. And he said, wouldn't it be cool if people could walk around in downtown Arlington on Abrams Street? And I said, I don't see it. Really? And he said, oh, I see it so much. It could be a great walkability. And I said, are we talking about the same Abrams Street? And he said, yes. A lot of us are working on this vision and this dream that there'll be walkability, there'll be this sense of community, like in, other big cities around. And I said, well, sure. I'd love to see it to believe it. And he said, well, I think you will. I think you will see it one day. Now, we lost Gene several years back, but his legacy and his dream lives on. And now we know that Abram is opening up and it's very walkable. There's also a Gene Patrick Plaza outside of First United Methodist that also has accessibility and walkability, and it's named in his honor because of the vision of people like him. So sometimes you might have an idea and it won't come to pass for a long time after, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't dream it and get started on it and start collaborating. And at that defining moment, I realized that there's a lot of things going on in downtown that really people can pick up the ball and run with. And that's another influence that struck us personally, that, we really should be downtown. With this revitalization, let's bring our business down there. Coffee shop on every corner in a city is a great thing because that means people are out communing and enjoying, and it's a simple pleasure. So that's what we found downtown. We do have a patio. The patio occasionally has dogs, all those things that you talked about. And it's a great place to be. It's got a great feel. Even during the whole shutdown, we have people walk in all the time and they say, I walked here from work. I will live around here. I love this whole area and all the cool individually family-owned shops and businesses that are down here. So many people say that about so many things going on. So it goes from a dream to a vision to a plan to a reality, and it's the real thing. And it goes back to our roots in Arlington and people carrying forward that legacy, really.
I am so glad that you brought up Gene Patrick. He and other people, had incredible careers. And, we as a community benefited from them coming back and choosing this community to give their gifts back to. And Gene was also a big leader in the arts here, and we've covered the history of the arts and live music in one of our podcasts. I know that Scott and Cindy, you both are active on our beautification committee for our downtown organization. And we've intentionally, under Tony Ritigliano's leadership, made public art a huge part of our downtown experience. So the mural program, the public art activations, the public art engagement efforts, and then the storefront grant program that both of you are very familiar with. Can both of you comment on that aspect of our creativity and sort of this downtown that's this blend of not just business and entrepreneurship, but art and innovation in that sector?
Sure. I love being on that committee because, I have a long history in the arts. I used to do fundraising for the arts. and my kids both went to an art school. And where I'm from back east, there were murals all over. And to see them here and know that there is an intentional focus to have more public art outside to add to the beautification and the accessibility is just so inspiring. We have the magic, what I call the magic mile, is if you walk down from the Levitt Pavilion and right around there, the Arlington Music Hall, you could walk to the Museum of Art, you can walk to Miss Persis and go across the street and see a great show at Theater Arlington. It's unbelievable that these places are there, but then also we're making an effort to have some of the businesses and the commerce reinvent and become more aesthetically pleasing on the outside, so that when citizens of Arlington, as well as the millions of visitors and tourists that come in from around the world, visit us, they see who we are. They see that we're a great sports town, a great arts town, the performing and visual arts, that we have small mom and pop places. We have large renowned places like Texas Live, Lowe's Hotel. We've got literally something for everyone here. And I see it as one of the connecting thread that goes through it is the arts and creativity.
Yeah, I agree with Cindy. It's so much fun to be on that committee. It's been fun watching the obelisks go up around the border of downtown Arlington with the lions' heads on them. They're beautiful. The murals keep going up right and left on buildings. The new one within the last few months at Miss Persis' studio is really beautiful. And there's just a lot of beauty in Arlington that a lot of people really just need to get out, especially at this point in time. If you don't want to be around people and just go walk around and look at stuff on UTA's campus, all scattered throughout the campus are beautiful, beautiful Maverick Mustangs, showing off a lot what the UTA student body brings to the table as far as art. If you've never been to a basketball game at UTA, to go in there and be able to see all of the glass and the glass blowing that happens at UTA that's getting scattered out now around the city. Phenomenal artists exist in Arlington, and it's fun to bring in folks from the outside as well and show people, that Arlington does appreciate art from everywhere else.
Now, I've heard all of you touch on a facet of our community that I find of great value, and it's something that's part of the message to our UTA student body. And that is, if you want to be part of the change, if you want to be part of making this new city, you can be a part of it. You can engage and you can be a leader here. I know the Chamber has some very intentional initiatives underway trying to develop that future leadership. But I also want to pick up on something you guys have all talked about, and that is this repurposing and reinvention of our buildings. We're not a traditional downtown with beautiful turn of the century historic stock. All of that went away. And, we became very much driven by automotive uses and industrial uses. And so when Cindy talked about these investors had this vision, they basically were taking old oil shops and car repair shops and creating a whole neighborhood and a whole new feel. So it's very cool. It's retro, but it's current. And all over the city, we've had to think about that. We've had to think about how do we reinvent ourselves. And Michael, we have great examples of that downtown, all up and down the street. And even the city has had to apply that. Can you talk about what we've done to our convention center and how we're looking to esports as a new future industry for our community?
Yeah, I think the esports arena is a great example of innovation and evolution. So our convention center, we knew that we were close to announcing a new hotel and a new convention center. So at some point, we were going to have to do something with the existing convention center. Well, through a study that was done from a university in New York, esports sort of entered into our thinking of something new and dynamic that is growing in the sports world, and the feeling that if Arlington is going to be a leader in sports, we also have to embrace esports. And then the Rangers, one of the owners, has an interest in esports as well. So it was a great idea to take this space that we knew was going to be replaced and repurpose it for something cutting edge that puts Arlington in the forefront of a growing new sport. Now, that growing new sport is a little bit like the wild, wild west right now. And that's what happens with innovation, right? There's a bunch of things moving around and bumping into each other. And that certainly is taking place in that sort of new world. But here's the great thing is you have a community, because with innovation, it does require some risk taking, right? If you're comfortable and you're someone that, doesn't see a need for a new process or a new invention, chances are you're not going to be an innovator. Well, our city has always been innovative. So the city looked at and Ron Price at the convention at the CVB as well, they looked at that and said, man, here's an opportunity for us to do something really cool that puts us out there in the forefront of this really new growing economy in esports. And it was an outstanding decision. Now, there are times where you have to really think outside of the box, be innovative, and seize the moment. Even realizing that when you seize the moment, that it could have an impact on you, at least immediately, but it positions you for long-term success. And that's one of the things that excites me about the esports arena and the way the city and the CVB sort of worked through that process. And it was a great story of innovation and evolving an asset that we have and turning that asset into something really new and cool.
And we all enjoyed participating, Mike, in your chamber retreat that you had several months ago. And you brought in a couple of UTA alum and asked them to present. And Scott, you were there and you know those guys. These are a couple of examples of young entrepreneurs that are doing amazing things right now, right here in our downtown, and wanting to be sort of future leaders. Can you mention what those companies are and what they're working on? Because I found it fascinating.
Yeah, I was really thankful when Michael reached out and said that he was going to have his executive board meeting offsite and have a retreat, and wanted to really make the focus of that, how we're growing as a city and entrepreneurship and innovation being a part of that. And if I could round up a few guys that represented and embodied that spirit. And so really have a few guys, we've got a lot of them in Arlington that are going in places and directions that are at the same level on par with Silicon Valley, a lot of companies in Austin, the top entrepreneurship communities around the United States. And so these guys came in, they're either all UTA affiliated, either grads from undergrad, one has a PhD and is doing his research right now at UTA, and another one was an undergrad. And so Ali Farzbad is a fantastic, he's the PhD at UTA. They are able to take through their tech piece, which they developed, a single drop of blood and be able to test for more than 50 viruses, diseases at one time off of one drop of blood. That is something that we've been looking at and trying to help him out as a community, how it will get out into the market the best way and be commercialized. And that is a name that you will see down the road, I guarantee it. And it will all have come out of the Arlington community and the UTA research tech piece. And then Tyler Sickles got into a business that most people unfortunately identify him with, the cannabis industry, but their tech was developed at UTA, and UTA hired him as a CEO and partnered with him to develop this technology, which is woven into kind of a canopy for agriculture. And what it does is it yields crops 30% faster than anything else that's out there. So when you're looking at, countries like China, who really import a lot of food from the US, and our agriculture and our farmers, it's not just about the cannabis industry. Obviously, that's got a lot of benefit there. But when it comes to agriculture and being able to grow crops at a 30% faster yield, that tech is extremely valuable. And that was developed here in Arlington through UTA. And one of UTA's grads now is the CEO and runs that company. Also something that's going to revolutionize agriculture, taking us back to our original agricultural roots at UTA, which is very cool. And those guys are getting a lot of love and support from the Chamber of Commerce board. A lot of the members of the chamber are working with those guys and trying to offer them mentorship, which is a huge part of this community and something that I'm real proud to be a part of as far as Arlington entrepreneurship and mentoring goes.
Scott, I really hadn't even thought about that full circle aspect where we're doing this amazing innovation to improve agriculture and farming. And we started back in the 1880s as a little farming town of 5,000 people. So that's a great full circle point and a good point for us to wrap up on. Again, I'm very grateful that all of you took time to talk with us today. And anybody want to add any final thoughts or observations about innovation and creativity in downtown Arlington's history?
I do. And this actually isn't about the history, it's more about the future. So maybe we're talking about creating history. And you know, when we talk about UTA and the opportunity to grow innovation and entrepreneurship in Arlington, one of the most important strategies is to create a place where that happens. And the place is more than the university. It has to be the community that surrounds the university. So downtown Arlington is so critical to what we believe our future can be. You know, I met with a person, actually gave a speech, and he asked a question. He was mad about Abrams Street. And he said, how in the world are you slowing down my drive to 360? It's one of the few ways that I can get to 360 in a hurry. And I asked him, I said, well, tell me, if you're developing a downtown, is your strategy for that downtown to move people through as quickly as possible? Because that's not a solution for a downtown. The entertainment district is a destination. The downtown is the heart and soul of our community. And we're so fortunate that our downtown is sitting right next to our university. So the two of those things working in concert together is what gives me such hope. You've really seen such a huge evolution to our downtown. If downtown was our heart and soul 20 years ago, it didn't speak highly of us, right? It just didn't speak highly of us. Now we can look at the downtown that's developing, and we can say, you know, this is beginning to represent who we are as a community, who we are as a city. And I just can't stress enough, just when you look to the future of entrepreneurship and you look at the future of Arlington and really doing what we can to foster that entrepreneurship innovation, it won't happen if we don't have a downtown that is the kind of place that students at UTA, where they want to live, where they want to work, where they want to play. And I couldn't be more excited. And one reason I think we have such a great future coming out of UTA is because I think our downtown has such an amazing future. So I just want to share that, because while we're talking about innovation and entrepreneurship, we can't separate it from downtown. The two are intrinsically linked, and we're fortunate for that.
Scott, your thoughts?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, you've got the university, you've got the city, and you've got the community as a whole, which we've got great leaders, great students, great people in the community who have been here a long time, like Cindy, or, you know, starting their businesses. At whatever phase in life you're going to let the entrepreneurial beast out. If you're an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur. That's just the way it is. It's not going away. But there's a large group of those people that exist here in Arlington. And I think the country is going to see that over the years to come. So I love our community. I love where it's going, the way it's starting to look, the people that are involved with it. And I couldn't be prouder to be here.
Thanks. And Cindy, we'll let you kind of have the final comment.
Thank you. Well, I agree wholeheartedly with what everyone has said just now. And I just firmly believe, that I always have, that positivity begets positivity. And then we're in a time and a place right here in Arlington that we are just continuing to grow and get brighter and brighter and brighter. And people are seeing that, and they're joining in. And young and old, whether you've been here forever or for many generations, or you just got here as fast as you can, Arlington is going places. It's been places and it's going places. And we couldn't be happier to be downtown and a part of this vibrant scene. And I want to thank you for what you're doing here as well, and for having us here to share our thoughts and our visions and our goals. Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you guys so much for joining us today. And I did get back here as fast as I could. And it is exciting to be back. We do work very collaboratively here, and there's great leadership at our city. And I know that this is a priority for the city too, to continue to support our relationship with UTA, to continue to support entrepreneurship, innovation, the arts, and continue to make this a downtown that we can all be proud of and that we all want to build our business. So thank you, and thank you for joining our podcast. And to close our session, here's a few parting words from our mayor, Jeff Williams.
It is a great day in Arlington.
Thanks for listening today. Please join us next week as we close out our history podcast series on a very special topic, the history of service in downtown Arlington. My special guests will be Carolyn Montesano with the Arlington Tomorrow Foundation, Miss Tilly Bergen and Jim Bergen with Mission Arlington, and another very special guest. See you next Thursday at 4 o'clock on Facebook Live.